I mean, you're starting.
Just means I'm getting it. So we still got a couple minutes here. We want to give everyone an opportunity to.
You tell me when you want to do voice check.
Brain injury lines in Montana. You know what? We technically are actually shut down for the day. I just was here trying to take care of a meeting that we're going to do. No, you're okay. Do you want me to give you a call tomorrow? Or do you want to call back tomorrow? We don't have ski helmets. The only helmets that we have are kind of a multi-sport ones that would be used for biking and skateboarding and stuff for kids. You're welcome. Thanks. Bye. Okay, Jim, I'm going to get us up on Facebook and we'll there we go. It's low. Okay, Jim, I'd say you're on if you are ready to go.
Ready to go. Tell me when you're fired up.
I think you're good now.
Go now?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, everybody. This is February 1st, 2023. Imagine that. How many of you thought you'd be here February 1st, 2023? Wow, what a treat. Welcome to Montana Puzzle Club. This is for me, I was just looking back and I found papers here where we started this in September of 2021. So we're at session number 21, I believe. Today is episode 21. 20 or 21, I'll figure that out next week. But welcome to Montana Puzzle Club. What is Montana Puzzle Club? Montana Puzzle Club is a support group that we found, started a little over a year ago, well, 2 years ago. I see my flyer, got looking at it today. We started this September 21st of 21, or around the 1st of September. What a deal. So we've been having a lot of fun in the last couple of years, presenting topics that are pertinent for you folks out there. Now you coming online, you're probably either interested in brain injury, a survivor of brain injury. And what's a brain injury? Brain injury is an injury to your brain, but how do we get a brain injury like that? You get it from trauma, you can get it from a stroke, aneurysm, tumors, shaken baby syndrome. There's lots of ways of getting a brain injury. But once you've had a brain injury, the effects are somewhat similar. Everyone is different. Can you imagine that we say every brain injury is different? It's not like a broken arm. A broken brain, it depends on how many pieces there are. How many pieces are there to your brain? A brain has about 1 billion brain cells and about 1 trillion connections. So now if you multiply a billion times a trillion, you know how many options there are for being different. So it's very true what they say is no brain injury, no two brain injuries are alike. Now, a lot of them are similar. We have a lot of similar conditions. So tonight I will go through a little bit, how do we get come about getting Montana Puzzle Club started? I'm Jim Mickelson. I'm a 31 and a half year survivor. As of January 10th, it was 31 and a half year survivor of brain injury. 31 and a half years ago, I was a full-time fireman for Missoula Rural Fire. I was on a fire, I responded to a fire out at the Y here, about 5-10, I think it's about 8 miles west of Missoula. At 4 in the morning, I was at this fire, big fire, gallery sheet of products burned, and about halfway through the fire, they needed some more water. So I volunteered to take the tanker down and fill it with water at a designated fill site, which was down by the airport. Right across the highway from the airport was Beaumont Park. And there was a hydrant there, high pressure hydrant that we use quite often to fill tankers. So I went down, I filled my tanker up, and then I started back the fire at 4 in the morning. And I got 152 feet when boom, and my fire truck was hit by a train. Train was coming from Arrow, coming to Missoula. I think they were coming from Kalispell, but the train hit my fire truck right at the passenger door, and it caught a little bit of the tank. It had a 4,000 gallon tank, so I was a heavy tank of 59,000 pounds. There's still no match for a train. So it pushed me down the ditch. I'm very here today because of my good habits. I had my seatbelt on. I was only 150 feet from where I started, and I had my seatbelt on, but it was just a lap belt. So I flew across the cab and hit my head on the wing, the little knob that opens the wing. That's the only injury I had, was a cut on the side of my head here. It hit that knob that opens the wing. It didn't even break the window. So, but it gave me a lifelong brain injury. I was kind of crashing, tied up in that tanker truck, the cab of that truck with a train that pushed it around the ditch. And so they took me into the hospital unconscious. I went into St. Pat's and was unconscious, and I was in a coma, semi-coma at St. Pat's for about a week and a half. And then they took me over to community rehab. And when I could breathe on my own and swallow on my own, I couldn't do anything else. It was crazy. Crazy. I couldn't talk, couldn't walk, none of that. So it took them 3 months to teach me how to walk and talk. And after that, it's a long, lot of recovery. You folks that are brain injury survivors out there know that brain injury doesn't heal real fast. It takes time. So I'm still going to therapy now after 31 and a half years. So that's the story of brain injury. It goes on and on. Anyway, I was a survivor for a few years. And then I started a support group in Missoula. The support group would quit, so I started again in Missoula, met a monthly support group, and then about a year or two after that, I had 3 or 4 people in the group that said, "Hey, we don't like coming to the brain injury group because about half of them are what we call low functioning survivors. There's 3 wheelchairs, we had 2 people that didn't talk, and that's a real tough thing for somebody that's just got a minor or a mild brain injury." So they asked me to start a group, and I started a weekly group called the Puzzle Club. The name comes from my wife. She said, well, your life is like a big puzzle. That train hit your life and it spread it all along the tracks. Now your job is to go back and find the pieces and put it back together. So that's where the name Puzzle Club came from. We don't do puzzles per se, but we put our lives back together with a piece at a time. You can't do the whole thing all at once, but you can do it a piece at a time. So that's where the Montana Puzzle Club. And then after my Missoula Puzzle Club was running, I had it running for about 21 years before John from the brain injury office said, hey, would you consider doing an online puzzle club? Help the rural people in Montana. Because so we got people all over Montana. And one of the problems with Montana is that the people out in Fort Peck or Havre or Glendive, they don't have a close group, a support group close by. What's the closest support group to Missoula? I think it's probably the closest one is in Butte or
Kalispell.
Kalispell. Kalispell's a close one. Hey, if Donnie's on there, hi tonight, Donnie from Kalispell. I don't know if you're on tonight or not, but welcome. We get people from all over the state respond, and you can have your choice of listening to us on the phone or on Facebook or on Zoom. Hopefully Zoom is where you can raise your hand and ask questions. So if you got questions, just raise your hand and John is my facilitator here tonight. He will say, hey, I got a question from Donnie or maybe Marilyn down Bozeman. You guys, wherever you're at, give us a call if you need to ask a question. So I now went through a little bit about how Puzzle Club got started and how the Montana Puzzle Club got started. Now we've been doing this 21 times for about a year, a little over a year now, 2 years, I guess over 2 years now. So it's been a great time. We pick a topic, each 2 weeks we pick a topic. I think our topic tonight is one that we covered in the Missoula group about a month ago. But the name of the topic is avoiding depression. Depression, and I think about depression because Montana has noted for depression and a little bit of a different type of depression. I think they call it SDF, seasonal disorder. It's from being hiding out inside because in wintertime you can't get out and play like you could other areas. So Montana has a little bit of automatic, kind of a simple depression. But what is depression? If you look at depression, it's not feeling good about who you are, what's going on. It's not feeling good. We all have down days when we don't feel good. I don't feel like going out. I don't feel like getting out of bed. I just don't feel good at all today. We all have bad hair days, don't we? Everybody has a bad hair day from time to time. But what's the difference between that and depression? The fact that depression comes along, it's kind of like a long, many couple bad hair days, a whole bunch of them together. So if you feel bad, and I'll read some of the depression topics, what depression is according to how do you look at the symptoms. I'll read it off my list from Mayo Clinic. It's the loss of interest in normal daily activities, feeling sad or down, feeling hopeless, crying spells for no apparent reason, problems sleeping, trouble focusing or concentrating, difficulty making decisions, unintentional weight loss or gain, irritability, restlessness, being easily annoyed, feeling fatigued or weak, feeling worthless, loss of interest in sex, thoughts of suicide or suicidal behavior, unexpected physical problems, such as back pain or headaches. And if that general, the key is that we all feel these things from time to time. It's when it extends on beyond a couple days that it becomes more of a problem. Any of those poor feelings when you don't have any interest in work or getting up and going for the day, and it persists for several days, or you have trouble sleeping at night, or maybe you got too much sleep and you want to just sleep all day and night. It can be either way. In fact, depression symptoms can vary totally because look at the age. The person that's having depression at 25 is not going to have the same symptoms as somebody that's 70. So it's that feeling of being unhappy and not really knowing why. You're unhappy about something. So then we jump into the next step. Well, if you can recognize any of those symptoms, maybe depression is something you have. For us brain injury people, and I've suffered depression from basically from day one or from within a week or two from being in the rehab, I soon realized that I was kind of worthless. I kind of felt like I was just a bucket of rocks. I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't walk. I couldn't talk right. I couldn't think right. I couldn't use any of my skills I'd grown up with. I felt very worthless about who I was. And so there was this case where combination with those elements that changed my life in a heartbeat were so discouraging that I got depressed about it. I felt bad about it. And it wasn't something that was there gone one day and gone the next, because as you know, folks know with brain injury, it's a long haul. You better be in for the long haul. If you're a caregiver, you better realize that this is not a quick fix thing. So I've got to look at my notes here for a second. One of my looking down one of my notes, I said, the question comes up, can you really avoid depression? That's an interesting question because they figure there's about 70 million people in America that have depression. So the question comes, can you really avoid it? How do you, and if so, can you, what's your feeling out there? Has anybody got any questions? And that's the problem with the way we do our Puzzle Club online here, is I get to talk to the camera. Unless you have a question, I don't know that your question, so I gotta kind of throw questions out that you may be asking.
And we do have a couple of questions whenever you're ready to answer.
Okay, we got a question.
So we had one that, and some of these are really difficult questions to answer. One of them was from a caregiver of a brain injury survivor, and they asked if all brain injury survivors deal with depression.
I don't know that all of them do, but I would say a majority of them do. And the reason is that is basic life functions aren't what they used to be. If you take anything you do, if you was used to riding a bike and you got bucked off a bicycle and broke your arm or something and you couldn't ride again, you're kind of depressed about that. So I say basically, probably the reality is most all brain injury survivors do suffer some depression from one area or another. In my case, I had those losses that I know both physically and mentally had big losses. That was a big change of life for me. And then in addition to that, with the brain injury, you can have clinical depression where the chemicals get mixed up in your brain for who knows whatever reason, and you're not getting fed the right things. Your brain doesn't operate well. No, most brain injuries don't operate right. So they call that clinical depression. In the case of clinical depression, the only really good help for it is a doctor that can identify that and prescribe the proper medicines. I was on Prozac for a number of years with my trying to help me deal through with depression. So Prozac is probably the #1 medication they prescribe for brain injury for depression, or one of them.
That kind of loops us around to two of the other questions that I see. One of them is, when should a person go see a doctor? And the other one is, how do you feel about prescription medications to treat depression?
Okay, how do you feel about, and as I mentioned there, I started on Prozac early on, and I was on it for at least 8 years. So medication is a good tool to use. I now being down long-term into it, I disagree some with medicine. I disagree with the doctors. There's more to it than just medicine. It took me a long time to get a change of heart with medicine, but I kind of question that some. So medicine, and one of the things that I got in for, and I'll cover it here in a second, is can you cure depression without medicine? Medicine is probably the #1 choice that doctors go through. So my question, after coming around and doing a lot of research on the internet on depression, I read on one time, well, they said, yes, you can cure depression without medicine. And the question, of course, was, how do you do that? Well, counseling. Okay, can you cure depression with counseling? And how do you do that? Well, they said, yes, you can cure depression, but it takes a severe amount of counseling. You have to do a lot of counseling to work with it. Well, in my case, it was medication, counseling, and a supreme desire on my own to get things better. I wanted to get things back to as normal as I could. I want life to get back to normal.
So that being said, I got a question here that kind of aligns with that. It's on Facebook and it says, can you please tell us how you gained interest back from the winter blues? So kind of what you're saying, you wanted to get out of that depression.
Okay, so there's a depression here, and there's the winter blues, or they call it, I can't remember the acronym, SADS.
Yeah.
Seasonal disorder. It's seasonal, it's cloudy days. It's been hauled up cabin fever, they call it. It's getting cabin fever. In Montana, it's a real common thing that we have, because people, unless you're an avid skier or snowmobile, you don't get out, you stay inside. So if I'm inside, rat hole inside all day, I can be depressed. Yes, that can cause depression. And by our little bit of our definition is sad feelings that are extended over a period of days or weeks or months, longer period of time. So the key is longer period of time. So now that kind of identifies what depression is for us. If you have more questions, we'll try to identify more. But it's a time element thing. So it's feeling worthless or feeling hopeless, like there's no hope. There's no hope for me. I went through that. I went through, I don't remember the time frame, several months after my accident, I went through suicidal depression. And that was a horrible time in my life. I just wanted out. I didn't want to hurt my family. I just wanted to walk off in the sunset, never to be heard again. That doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I tell you, if you feel suicidal, then there's immediate help. The first thing you do is call for help. Don't feel bad about calling for help. Start with your family and friends. If they don't give you the big support right away, call another. There's suicide, there's help hotlines. There's all kinds of hotlines available for especially for suicidal depression. The key The key is don't keep it hidden. Don't rat hole yourself. Don't hide. Get out and meet somebody. If you got, that's why I've had such good luck with the puzzle club is we meet every week. What's advantage? Because sometimes your brain injury has symptoms that come up and they don't want to wait until next month to meeting. But next week I can say, hey, I'll raise my hand, I have a question. And that's one thing we pride ourselves about Puzzle Club is we'll talk about just about anything there is. We even talk about some of the taboo things, but we very limited. We have in the rules for Puzzle Club, we say we talk about everything but religion and politics. So we try to avoid those two things. And from time to time, if the people come up and they want to talk, we'll talk about those too, but not very much. So we've talked a little bit about what depression is and covered some of those symptoms and about how to cure prevention. The biggest thing is start by calling somebody, getting some help, getting somebody that'll listen to your story. And those of you who are caregivers out there and thinking in terms of depression, the number one thing, if you're a caregiver and you're dealing with someone with depression, is open up your ears. Sit and listen. Just listen what they're saying. And try not to advise them to do anything, but just listen to their story and find out what their story is. And after you hear their story, a lot of times you can say, hey, there's something I picked up on here. You used to play when you were a kid. What did you like to play with? So turn the story, try to find out something that they like or like to do. If they like to eat ice cream cones, then hey, you haven't had a Sunday here for a couple of months now. You haven't been to ice cream shop. Let's go have an ice cream cone. And so you got to be able to listen to it. And I say a favorite thing to me is God gave me one mouth and two ears so that I can listen twice as much as I talk. That's real tough for me here talking to you on Montana Puzzle Club because I have to do the talking. You do the listening. But I love it when you talk because so ask me questions. I'm glad to try and answer them. I don't always know the answer, but if I don't know the answer, I'll find it. If I can't find the answer for you tonight, you ask the question. By the time the next 2 weeks comes up again, let's see, our next Puzzle Club will be the 15th of February. 15th of February, right after Valentine's Day. Hey, didn't that everybody smiling now? It's Valentine's Day. They've got to be smiling about that, hasn't it? Whether you're a giver or receiver, that Valentine's Day is a good time of the year. And that's a big part of depression. Figure out whether you're a giver or receiver. If you're the person that's depressed, it's pretty hard to be a giver, isn't it? You want to be the receiver or something. Well, part of my solution to depression is to turn yourself into a giver. One of the best ways out of a hole is to give back to some, even if it's helping somebody across the street, give back. Think about what you could do. How can I help somebody else to stay? And that's a big factor. If you can help somebody else and that helping you help yourself. That's one of the best things I like to do is, and that's one of the reasons why that I have persistently stuck with Puzzle Club for years. Missoula Puzzle Club now has been functioning every Saturday for over 23 years. Wow, that's a lot of Saturdays. My wife, it bugs my wife some because she says, don't you want to be at home with your family some Saturdays? I said, well, yeah. And I'm getting better at it now. If I got family at home, I get somebody else to run Puzzle Club. So that's a challenge. If you jumping back on my deal about helping, that's one of the reasons I like Puzzle Club, is I can help people. One of my goals, mission statements is with Puzzle Club is that we want to help people understand how to put the pieces of their puzzle, life puzzle back together, that they can go on and live without a support group. I've got over 100 people on my past survivors, not 100, over 90 people on my list of past Puzzle Club members. The people that didn't come to Puzzle Club for a while and then they feel like they can handle it all on their own, I just say go for it. Now, I still send out notices. We only get about, we've been last 2 weeks ago, we had 9. Then we went downhill with bad weather last Saturday. We only got 3 of us, but so we go from 3 to 9 people a week, and so it varies.
We do have a question if you're interested.
I got a question coming in.
Okay, so there's actually 2 comments. One of them, they were saying that they felt like their depression kind of combined with seasonal affective disorder and became actually a little worse during the winter. They almost kind of worked against each other. And then somebody made a comment saying that they dealt with depression as a caregiver of someone with a brain injury. And then the question is, how does depression affect your loved ones?
Depression, as listed in my list of symptoms, disinterest in sex is very, very prominent with married couples or couples that are compatible there. They have 0 interest in that. Depression usually causes a low, and I don't care. I don't care about people. I don't care about sex. I don't care about anything, but the key there is longer term. Again, I've said that several times now. It's when the feeling persists. If I don't care whether I go to work, if I don't care if I get out of bed, if it persists and goes on for a long time, then you need to look at it. So, as I said before, number 1 is reach out, ask for help. Start with family. If you don't get help from family, get online. And I don't have the numbers for the suicide prevention line. You don't have to go to that extent, but there's help. I recommend the help counseling. Most of you folks who have been through rehab had a psychologist, counselor in rehab. If you don't know somebody that's a good psychological counselor, call up your rehab again. Say, hey, who do you recommend for counseling? I like that idea because I think it's real important for you to find a counselor that's familiar with brain injury, that knows brain injury stuff. My counselor was Bill Hanstott, with Dr. Hanstott, was a wonderful counselor at Community Medical Center. I think he's retired since, but he was fabulous with me. I'd come in and sit down, and he said, well, how you doing? I'm having a bad brain day. Well, I said, yeah, I'm sorry. So we can't help that. I said, wait a minute, you're the counselor. He's no, I can't help a bad brain day. He said, now I want you to do something. Take a little yellow pad of papers, and every time you get a feeling, I don't care if it's happy feeling or sad feeling, write down that feeling that you was exposed, that you're having. Write down the feeling and what time you was having it. So I did one better. If I was feeling something day or night, I'd go into my computer. I had a logbook in my computer. I could log in the time. Hey, I'm angry. It's 3 in the morning. I'm angry for somebody. And then I'd write down, and then I could go out back and go to sleep. If it was during the day, I could write down, hey, I'm angry again, or I'm happy, or elated, or this feeling has just been crazy today. I'm just really sad. So then I would, at the beginning of the next week, I'd print up my logbook for the week, and I'd give it to my counselor, say, now, before we start you reading, you can see, I wrote down what you said, you write down feelings. And he would say, hey, this is just exactly what I wanted. A feeling we can deal with, a feeling you can understand, a feeling at the moment we wanted, he would work with me trying to identify what caused that feeling. And then once you start identifying what causes it, then you can say, okay, what are some solutions? And you've heard me say it before, talking to Montana Puzzle Club, 4-step process. Well, the same process applies to depression. Number one is you're aware that you're depressed, is that I'm depressed. Then number two is that it's a 4-step process. Number two is question. What's going on here? Why am I having this? Who's at fault here? You know, question what's going on, what's causing this thing? And it's really easy to say it's your fault. But you question what's going on. Step number 3 is look at that question after you've got those questions and write down the list of options. If you can write down, it's one thing to put them in your head, but it's better if you can write it on a piece of paper. Here's 4 solutions or options to solutions to this problem. One of the bottom ones down there at the bottom is do nothing. People got to get used to my depression. Well, that's not a very good one, but that is an option. Then step number 4 of this plan is grab an option, try it. If reading a book is one of those options, like I'll get a book and read a book. If it's going outside for a walk, go outside for a walk. Start doing it, start taking action on it. That's the key with depression is awareness and then doing some sort of action. Get the action going. So you've heard me say that before, the 4-step process. This is a valuable tool, use it, just about everything. In fact, one of our next topics coming up in 2 weeks, I want to talk about the REV process. The REV process, rational emotive behavior. And that's simply that everything we do starts with a thought, and that thought produces the feeling produces some sort of emotion, and based on that emotion, you do some sort of action. And we're doing the same thing here tonight, talking about depression. We're identifying it, we're questioning it, we're looking at options, and then we start with an action. That action is so important. If you're depressed or feeling depressed, the key is act on it. But the proceeding to action on this, question it, and then look at options. You know, maybe one of the best options is if you're feeling depressed here this time of year is, hey, maybe I should go skiing. Maybe I should go for a walk. Simple things. You know, every one of us has a different needs, different ways of filling those needs. From a caregiver standpoint, the best thing is to say, hey, tell me what you feel. Tell me what you're feeling. And if they're feeling depressed, then you start looking, what are you feeling? What do you say you're depressed? About what? And question it. Make them throw some questions out there. Get people to say, well, this is why I feel this way. I know one of my friends that is a puzzle club that I talked to a lot of years ago, he got me aside this. There he just says, hey, how you feeling? Well, I'm doing it. And he stimulated that by saying, why? And I said, well, because the sun's not shining. Why? He kept asking me, why this? Why? Just kept asking the question, why? And it made me think. It made me think. So from a caregiver standpoint, that's one of your best tools that you can do is get them to answer why. Get them, why do you feel this way? I have a couple of sayings that you brain injury survivors, sometimes you get asked a question, and if you don't know the answer, what do you say? Well, you just clam up. Sometimes what's a good tool to use is as a survivor is if you're not sure about the answer, just say, that's interesting, why do you ask that? So you're answering the question with a question. But it gives you time to think about it, and they may answer the question themselves, you don't know. But that's a saying that I tried to put into my regular routine of talking with you. That's interesting, why do you say that? How do you do that? There's my old saying is I had 6 tried and trusted friends, taught me how I do what, where, why, when, how, and who. So just use those tools. Why am I depressed? Ask that of yourself if you're trying to solve your own problems. Why do you think you're depressed? Or what caused it? Who caused it? How long have you been doing this? When did that happen? And what are you doing about it? So if you ask those questions as a caregiver, you can find out a lot of info to help for you to be able to help them and knowing what their problems are, why they're depressed. Just ask them questions. And then by all means, listen to the answer. So many people got preconceived ideas, I can solve this guy's problem. No, that's wrong. You can't solve his problem unless he is willing to let you help him solve it. So, build that into your repertoire. That's interesting. Why do you say that? So, yeah, it goes back to my old sales stuff. Everybody's a salesman. Everybody said, no, I'm not a salesman. We are. Every one of us is a salesman. If you want to sell your idea to your wife, you got to sell her an idea that this is a good deal. How do you do that? Well, you can tell her, but it's better saying, hey, I can ask, how would you like to go get a sundae? How would you like to go for a ride? So what the thing here is the best tool for sales is asking a question. If you're going to sell something, ask them a question. Why do you like going for a ride? So my whole slogan is telling ain't selling, asking is. So we're all salesmen, whether you're just a family provider or a wife or a mother or a child that's asking questions. It's the same thing. You're a salesman. You may not agree with that all the time. You may not think of the idea, but you're a salesman because you're selling your friend on your idea. If it's a roommate at school, you're still a salesman. You're selling them on the idea that'd be a good idea for us to go out and have a drink down at the tavern. You're selling them on that idea by asking the questions. So there's one of the tools that virtually all counselors that deal with on depression, it's going to be one of the first thing they ask is, when did this happen? How long have you been depressed? What did you do? Who said, did somebody say something? Asking a question. So that's the best tool there is if you're a counselor. And if you're a depression, if you're the person that's depressed, ask yourself those questions. How did I get it? Where did I go? What did this? How come I start feeling? How come I feel so crappy? You may just ask yourself, when did this start? Most of the time with depression, it starts with some small incident that sets you on a spiral. And for depression, we think of a downward spiral, down. You clear down here at the bottom of the spit, you don't feel good about who you are or what's going on, nothing. You're completely down about it all. So think about if you're down there, you want to get on a spiral your way out of that pit. Spiral. So think about climbing up or going down. Depression just about always is the end result of going down. Something started somewhere. Something started you on that spiral. If you can start looking and identify what that was, then you can say, okay, every time I get around old Uncle Harry, he sets me on this downward spiral. So what do you do about it? Well, I just got to avoid Uncle Harry. You learn what you have to do. We all have to learn what we have to do to keep from getting ourselves in trouble. If you're a kid and you know that you can't, I'll go to a different direction.
We do have a couple questions if you're interested.
Yes, if you had a question, go ahead.
First and foremost, there have been a handful of comments saying great point, hit the nail on the head, things like that. As you know, memory loss can be a part of a cause of depression. Gentleman asked, how long did it take before you could remember some day-to-day things after your injury?
Oh, memory, yes, and that's been one of our favorite topics is memory. In our weekly puzzle club meeting, we cover the hot topic of memory at least twice a year. And how long did it take me before I started? I still have trouble with memory. Memory is one of my biggest peeves about my brain injury. And I still can't quite get my wife to grasp on 100% on it. My problem is a short intermediate time. Like if I need to get a pencil out of the car, I fold up my paper and put my book over in the corner and say, gee, what did I do that for? Oh, I was gonna get a pencil out of the car. So I get up and go to get a car, and when I get out to the door, I said, gee, the door's pushed open, it's cold air is coming in there. How come that cold air is coming in there? I look down and find out, there's a block in the door, they're keeping the door open. Oh, I'm gonna fix that while I can. And I fix that. And then 5 minutes later, I say, what did I get to the open door for? Oh, I was going to the car. So I guess the answer to that question is keep practicing and keep focusing on what you're gonna do. I have to do that myself all the time. My challenge is I get interrupted in a thought process. And as you know, it's one of the real common puzzle club problems we have. And as a group leader, it's something that it's one of my hardest challenges is to be able to shut somebody down and give it to them because they have a thought that's on their head now. And they can't wait 5 minutes. They got to tell their thought. And that's a real common thing is your thought is there now. And with brain injuries, sometimes in 30 seconds, that thought's gone. So how do you learn how to do that? Well, you can start challenging yourself, practice doing that. Saying, I want to get a good thought going here and get something that distracts that and be able to say, okay, now I'm going to get back on track. How do you get back on track? For me, and you've seen me here doing it, I'll talk for a little while, and to get back on track, I said, just a minute, I gotta look at my notes. And go down, look at my notes, say, what, yeah, I already covered that, page 2. Oh, what was this? So I get back on track. That's the advantage of writing things down. I'm kind of a nut about it. I like to write down what I want to talk about tonight, and I go through things and then I have different ideas that I want to talk about. And So I don't know if I answered your question there. I forgot what you asked me.
Yeah.
See, that's a very typical memory thing. I forgot what you asked me. Ask me again if you wish.
If we got another question from your friend Larry. Larry's asking, how important is exercise and movement to getting better and living larger?
Oh, thank you, Larry, for that, asking that question. That is probably one of the number one things with depression. Is get up and move. I don't care, just get out of bed, get off the couch, get off your favorite easy chair, get up and take a walk. Get up and move, just as Larry would say, just doesn't matter, just get up and move. And when you're done moving, then come back and say, well, I'm gonna sit here for 12 minutes and I'm gonna get up and move again. So maybe setting yourself some guidelines. But as Larry would say, the very most important thing about life is moving. You don't have to go to the gym, but just get up and move, take a walk.
Jim mentioned a little red book, which I'm not sure what he means.
Larry's got a little red book.
Or Larry did, excuse me, sorry.
Larry's got his little red book and he takes notes. He has got notes and notes and notes. I commend him for that. I asked him yesterday when we talked, I said, well, yeah, I see you writing the notes down. Do you go back and read them? Why is this? I just remember. And for memory people, that's one of my primary things is I can remember things if I write it down. It's if you think about memory, it's getting the information, put it in your head, and then review it. So that's the advantage of writing it down is you got the idea, you wrote it down, you put it in your head, you wrote it down, you took you thinking about it several times to write it down. And then if you've got a good system, you say, hey, when I get home, I'm going to look at my notes and read them again to review it. For me, I did in my rehab, I mentioned it earlier, in rehab, I started a journal on my computer. I got in and I figured at the time, because I don't want my wife seeing all my private notes about what I'm feeling about. Or somebody, I didn't want people, so you can put a passcode on your journal if you want. You know, there's been a lot of stories about journals, what do they call them? A diary. You don't have to be the president's daughter to have a diary. Anybody can have a diary. You can have a diary, but it's just making notes to yourself that you're going to go back and refuse. I like it, you know, my diary, as I said there, is I was looking through my notes today and I found a note for one of our first puzzle clubs back in September of 2021. I think that was one of the first Montana Puzzle Club meetings we had. When I wonder about how long I've had Puzzle Club going, I have to go back and look at my old calendar books. I kept track of attendance roster for years. I kept a book with all my attendance stuff. So I keep it's kind of a diary. I do names, I try to keep names. And as I mentioned here earlier, I have a name tags, names of all my past visitors to Puzzle Club. There's over 90 past survivors on the Puzzle Club. And when I get really bored and nothing else to do, what do? I open my book of past survivors and I start calling people. It's amazing now with the new phone systems, probably about 75% of the phone numbers don't work. So there's another one about memory you can in today's modern world, you can get search engines. You can order a program that'll let you search for people. And so I was trying to find the names, to find the address, the phone numbers for old Puzzle Club members. I wanted to find, I was trying to get a reunion going for the people that made that participated in the Puzzle Club movie. If you haven't seen the Puzzle Club movie and you haven't seen it, by golly, make a note of it and call the brain injury office here or call me and find out how to get the Puzzle Club movie. There's a movie out on the Puzzle Club. It's about 2 hours long, and there's 30 minutes making the Puzzle Club. You can Google it on your computer today and see the movie, the 30-minute segment on making of the Puzzle Club. And if you look that up, making the Puzzle Club, it'll have you a 30-minute segment that'll show me and our group of people that were meeting Puzzle Club at the time they made that movie back in 2004. And we were meeting in Paradise Falls in their meeting room at that time. They closed their meeting room and turned it into a casino. So we no longer meet there at Paradise Falls. We've met about 5 or 6 different restaurants around Missoula. But it's a part of life. I'll just say it's a part of life. You're moving and it's change. Is there anyone here, any one of the brain injury survivors that hasn't had to deal with change? Change is something that we all get to deal with. That's one of my topics today. Maybe we should put it on the list and making how to make changes. How to change after your brain injury. I like writing things down. This time of year, we write down goals. I hope you all, now you're in the second month of 2023. I hope you've gotten your list of what do they call goals for the year?
Oh, yeah, geez, why are we drawing a blank on it?
For the year,
New resolution.
Resolutions. So if you've all gotten your resolutions written down, did you write them down the 1st of January? I started on Puzzle Club, started harping and getting people to write down their resolutions about the first part of December sometime. When all through December, I kept reminding people, start making up your list of resolutions. So to come 1st of January, all you gotta do is just copy them, say, yeah, I'm all done. I got my resolutions down. And then we even covered a topic. Topic's called MERS. MERS is a goal setting process. And then when I talk about goal setting process, I went in and looked today, looked online. I was in a business called SMI, Success Motivation Institute, out of Waco, Texas. Paul Meyer, I look in there, he was one of the first billionaire businesses that started Success Motivation Institute. And that was a goal setting process. And the very same thing we're talking about. And I've used it for training for Puzzle Club in the process of setting goals and what motivates you. Paul Meyer come up with a system of teaching motivation. He used to say you was either motivated or you wasn't. His theory was you can motivate yourself by a learning process. And he used cassette tapes at the time. Now they got them on disc, but it's a similar type of deal. It's using, again, the power of spaced repetition. If I gotta learn how to stand up, I stand up here. But how many times you gotta practice standing up before you learn it? When you're getting out of rehab, boy, you gotta have a chair with arms on, don't you? But now, today, or this week in my physical therapy session, they'll practice standing up. I practice getting out of a chair without using the arms. how to stand up and keep my balance. Oh, I'm going random. This brain injury stuff is random. I'm randomly disabled. That's one of my favorite sins. I'm randomly disabled with my brain injury. Today I can walk, tomorrow I need to have help. Today, and I've gotten to where I use my walking stick so much. Yes, I can walk without it, but I take a war risk, take a chance of falling. I see you writing questions down there, John. Do you have any questions?
That was actually just a note that I had for future puzzle clubs. An idea.
Okay. I'm always open to suggestions. You guys who are listening online tonight, welcome. You were running out of time here tonight. I want to welcome you to, thank you for coming and showing up to Puzzle Club. John will give me the numbers. We're looking to get the numbers. My goal I set was 100 people in Montana to watch Montana Puzzle Club online, but I'm backing my goal down to say 25. So we're going to shoot for 25. And so I need your help. I want you to reach out and grab someone that you know has computer knowledge of how to run their computer a little bit and help them get on. I sent out my notice to Puzzle Club today was, hey, you can go in like your Zoom, you can practice Zoom and logging in on this number. The numbers are there. And practice getting in to getting logged in. You can get all the way up to, you can't log in on this session until John opens the session up, but you can get all the way up to that last point of logging in. And it'll teach you how to go through, how to go into Zoom. And if you have other suggestions about how we can make Puzzle Club reach more Montanans, write some questions down. Maybe the next one of these other sessions, we'll have to have a big question and answer period to where we can get your questions about how you think we can reach more Montanans. Our goal is to reach out and have available Puzzle Club to everybody in Montana that has a brain injury. Can you imagine how many people have got brain injuries in Montana? That'd be a real question.
We would break Zoom.
So with that in mind, we're gonna shoot for the next one is February 15th. The day after Valentine's Day, come on here and we'll start going. I think, did I tell you what my topic was gonna be?
I don't know if we talked about that topic, but they can always get it via Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Facebook or email.
Our topic we want to start talking about the REB process, rational motive behavior. It's the thinking process. I like to start that off each year, and I want to start on the REB process, get us in the mode of how do we learn how to think better, and how do we make our thoughts match up with our actions. How do you get them on track? So that's our challenge for this next 2 weeks is thinking skills. So if you have any other questions, write them down and write to John or Sarah here at the Brain Injury Office. If you don't know how to write it down, call them on the phone. If you're around Montana and you need an 800 number, it's 1-800-241-6442. If you're got a phone that can dial without the 1-800, it's 541-6442. 6442. Now remember that number. It's either 541 or 241. So with that, I think we're done for the night. We're going to sign off and we'll see you February 15th.
Okay, good night.
Good night.